yet another edition of Story Talkies. This time, we are talking about a very, very important issue, an issue that all of us are grappling with, and that is the issue of employer brand and creating a strong employee value proposition. We have with us Chandramouli Srinivasan. He is the CEO of Feedback Insights, an organization that has been pioneering research around customer and employee experiences. They also work around brand experiences and creating a very holistic approach to measuring what your customer, employees, as well as your brand proposition is. We are very glad to have you, Molly, and I'm sure it's going to be an exciting conversation around EVP today. Very glad to host you at Story Talkies.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Nidhi. Thanks for hosting me in the Story Talkies today.
Is the experience really measurable, or is it something which is notional? Is it a softer aspect of the way we work, or is it something which is real, concrete, something that you can measure, and something that work around, something that you can improve upon on a very, very strategic manner and not just tactical approach?
Very, very interesting question that you ask. And to start this whole conversation, this whole thing about customer or employee, I mean, I'm saying experiences. Like you said, this is experience economy. And gone are the days when, you had product differentiation, you had manufacturing differentiation, and people bringing in just innovation in the product. But I think now it's all about experiences, and we're also dealing with a lot of the millennials and the Gen Z who are now slowly starting to consume, and a lot of them are so much more seeing value in experiences. So let's get to what this experience is all about. If I just go back to the book, this is still this customer experience or employee experience is still a perception of how they feel in the various touch points with the brand. So it's still a perception. So to answer your question, theoretically, it's still a very touchy-feely, intangible perception that a person brings. But an important question that you bring in, so how do you measure this? This old saying that goes, what's not measured is not monitored, what's not monitored is not managed. So if you go back to looking at measuring this, it's important to kind of look at how this experience really plays out. And that actually brings in a dimension called as expectations. Each of us, when we engage with various brands and categories, have certain expectations from that category. And the moment that expectation is met, we feel a wow experience, And if it is not met, you feel terrible about it. And it's not about the absolute experience versus my calibration in my mind about what I expect versus what I get. And I think that's an important thing. And smarter firms, what they tend to do is to measure those expectations or know those expectations and set goals, KPIs, SLAs for meeting those, which then gets measured. The most popular way to measure these experiences are about doing surveys and satisfaction surveys. NPS is very popular in terms of getting experiences. But having said that, I think the more latest is in terms of real time getting a sense in terms of the mood and the sentiment of the user as and when they work, especially in the whole digital economy, in the way people are today engaging with various brands.
We are seeing the employee value proposition, right, is one of the things that we are seeing, that a lot of communication around it, a lot of hoo-ha about it is suddenly going up. It's not that the companies did not have employee value proposition before, it's that right now it's being heard a lot of noise around it. And there are a lot of organizations who are suddenly creating many SOPs, offering many things. One of the organizations we saw that is offering BMW, or someone is giving a Harley Davidson, all that to tell that I have a better value for my employees. But is that the value? How do you see this EVP war going out and people are rolling out SOPs? How do you see it panning out? And what exactly is EVP? Is this is a BMW or Harley Davidson a EVP?
So I think sometimes I feel some of them are quite trivializing employee value, because it's not just maybe it may attract the person, but I don't know whether it'll retain the person there, but at least, the value of getting the person. And it's literally it's a big enticement to get the person in maybe. But coming back to the question on employee value, one of the things that is evolving in the whole employee space is moving from employee experience to employee loyalty and employee advocacy to employee value. So one of the things that we as practitioners of employee feedback, we have done a lot of work on a specific question called value as a professional. And we've found very, very interesting insights and messages coming in the last few years. Being a research firm, we rely a lot on the data to make some of the observations that we do. So a lot of qualitative work that we've done, we realize that every employee has an equation in their mind. This equation is what I give to the company versus what I get from the company. Till the time what I give to the company is always lesser than what I get from the company, the person stays there. The moment in my mind, I mean the employee's mind, they get a sense that what I give to the company is a lot more than what I get from the company. They start looking out and moving on. Now, what is it that they get from the company is in a way the value that you're talking about, the whole value prop. Now, this value prop could be money, salary, the benefits, it could be the brand, it could be the role. I mean, the tech industry, it was on-site at some point in time. You get a job and you can go off to the US and settle there. That's a value prop that people looked at. Or it could be that I'm able to get flexibility, and a lot of mid-age folks look at a work-life balance and they're looking at what this could bring in. So the value proposition varies quite dramatically across age profiles, varies very, very differently between the aspirational levels. And some of the startups are demanding, but still people go land up there primarily because the CV value is done pretty well. So I'm bringing this concept of CV value. I was recently speaking at a forum on entrepreneurialism, and we find that incidentally, a lot of the youngsters and today's millennials and Gen Zs are so keen on driving something, owning up something, not be driven only through SOPs and standard operating procedures, but to do some impactful work for the organization in my sphere, in my function. And I think that they really see as value. And I think that's one element, but I really can't box it there. Having said that, firms are struggling to articulate the value proposition, which really cuts across the various stakeholders, the entry-level employees to the mid-managers to the senior folks in the organization. And it's going to be very, very difficult to articulate a single value proposition just through communication alone, I feel.
When you talked about the measurement, right? What is it that the employee is giving and what is it getting in return, which looks like something which can be measured in some form through some metric. So do you think it would be a good idea for organizations who are grappling with retention to keep this measurement in mind and maintain a balance where they are not just offering them a salary or a revision on the mid-year, but look at it on a constant basis? Is it possible for organizations to do it? Is it feasible?
Yes, it's definitely feasible, and I think there are smarter firms are tending to do that. So one of the things that you see is that some research that we did showed us that I'm very happy with the company. I'm so happy with everything, my work content, but I'm still leaving the company. And that quite baffles, right? Because we all lived with the hypothesis that if you keep your employees happy on their experience, they'll just stay on. But that's not really true. A deep dive on that specific instance of a research that we did, we found that a certain set of employees want variety, the variety-seeking nature. And I think this is going to be different for different firms. So it's very important to kind of discover what the employees that you have and the employees that you attract seek from your organization as value. And that value you need to kind of amplify, you need to kind of articulate, and also kind of communicate this back to employees. And I think that's something that employees need to see, that it's happening by design and not by chance. From a measurement point of view, both structured and unstructured information is available. So smart organizations look at Glassdoor, they look at various Indeed, they also look at LinkedIn, they look at what employees seek from organizations like their brand, and also look at what is it that employees seek from their competition. So keeping this is now it's becoming the employee space is also becoming pretty much like the way it's customers. There was a point in time we used to give more importance to the customers, and just purely from being in market research for the last 20 years, customer sats used to be more getting higher attention than the employee sats. And then used to come the vendor sats and then the channel partners. So really, the pecking order and importance in the organization. But incidentally, now firms are giving a lot more importance to the employees because I think they're making or breaking the way firms are operating. Maybe. So answer your question, yes, there are metrics available. Doing both structured and unstructured, run surveys, short surveys, do exit interviews, get your onboarding right. Folks are joining in and they join in, find out what is it that the reason that they've really made the choice of joining your organization versus others. Dropouts, do some specific interventions and dropouts to get some metrics. So I think those are hugely valuable interventions to get this and metricize this.
Now, the next part is action and communication. So there are chances that the action is not taken or not taken in time, or the complete action is not taken. And another problem being that even if you have taken an action, not many people get to know it because you have not communicated it well. So this is also something I'm sure you would be seeing it across organizations. What do you think are the inhibiting factors? What stops the organization from actually acting on the insights and also communicating it well?
One of the biggest bottleneck that we've seen in firms is a lack of acceptance. One of the biggest problem is the leadership, either the senior most level or at the functional level, not accepting that there's a problem. And so that's an important stumbling block for firms to act on. And sometimes they go and address the symptoms than the real root cause. Sometimes your policies can't be at cross purposes with the employee value proposition that you communicate. So, some of the times the processes, systems, policies need to be aligned to the value proposition that you demonstrate. If you're going to be demonstrating a value proposition of an agile, nimble, new to market, new to the world kind of a category, the employees would expect that the processes are similar. And then you start realizing that day one, your onboarding has got employee policy. 2 days, you just walk them through the employee policies and one-on-ones with people. Then you lost it on them versus what you have to do it as a different experience. And that disconnect actually lands up creating a big issue. So when you act on it, it's important to tie some of what you're really promising to the systems, processes, structure, and policies, and so on. And I think that's another area where things fail. Another area we feel that we've seen where it doesn't take off is because of lack of governance and review by the leadership. A lot of times intentions are good, but then leadership will put it on thing and expecting that it's going to run on its own. It really doesn't happen. So it's important for reviews to happen, bring in interventions, and also nourish it with budgets. So sometimes everything can't be done with shoestring budgets. It needs budgets, and everything costs money. And I think it's important to put where the mouth is. So it is very, very crucial to also get those right. And the last one I want to say why things fail is to have success metrics, have a 30, 60, 90, 120-day plan, set out what you would like to achieve. And those kind of systems really help in kind of achieving the outcomes. Otherwise, like what you said, a lot of times you do the surveys, you measure it, you kind of bring in the insights, you have the analytics, you know what the issue is, but it never gets addressed. So, those are some of my experiences with some of the clients that we've worked with.
So what you're saying is change is something that many people resist, and sometimes it's addressing the elephant in the room is not very easy, right?
It's also attitudinal. Some of the senior leadership look at the youngsters saying, hey, they're young, what do they know? So this whole paternalistic thinking sometimes is a huge bottleneck, especially talking about the young workforces today.
So the generation gap exists.
Absolutely. Absolutely huge generation gap, and the way we look at it. So I'm not sure what the youngsters today like a paternalistic approach. They would like to be treated as equals. Listen to me. In fact, I heard a client make a beautiful point about this whole remote working and how it's democratizing meetings. So you got the senior most person in the meeting and the junior most person in the same meeting and just typing in the same chat window one after the other, and with a, I mean, next to impossible in large corporations. But I think that's the culture that people also expecting. And if that's a value prop that you're promising, I'm not saying that every firm needs to be the same, but it needs to align to the value proposition you say. If you're saying something, but your systems and processes don't align, that really creates a lot of dissonance.
One of the challenges that we see as communicators is that companies have a different persona in front of the client and a very different persona in terms of the employee, and therefore the brand voice differs. We talk about creating one voice inside out, what you are to the employees and what you are to the brands, but there is a dissonance that we have found. Is your experience similar?
Yeah, and maybe yes. I think you do see a big dissonance. We portray and a lot of posturing and positioning happens, which are very, very different to the customers versus the customer or the consumer side versus the way it's played out on the employee side. And this is primarily stemming from the fact that a lot of the work gets done from the customer-facing groups. And if you look, and I did make this point. Not just from a communication, even from the point of view of focus, brands are a lot more focused to the consumer and the customer side, a lot more than the employees, unless you're talking about some of the best names like the Googles and the Amazons and stuff like that, which really does a very, very good job from an employee perspective also. But if you just take in general, if you take 100 organizations, I would imagine that 90 out of the 100 puts a lot more effort and time and management attention, and the senior most folks looking at more of the customer than the employee. Even in the knowledge economy, even in the people-centric businesses. And that's very, very counterintuitive, but that seems to be a reality. Second is from the communication standpoint, sometimes it's also important that the communication is really coming in from the heart. It can't be, I mean, it needs to come in from who. It's equally important who says that as much as what's been said. You can't, to a customer and a consumer, you can just put out a handle and have it as a handle which just communicates. But in an employee context, they know flesh and blood who lives in the organization and who are the leaders in the organization. Employees do know, and they know the tone and tenor. The beauty of human mind is we all discern between, what is said namke vaste versus things which are really coming from the heart. And I know of, I can take this example, Mr. Vinit Nair, when he was in HCL, he used to dance on the floor and he was such a hit amongst the employees because he used to mean it and do it. And I think that kind of connects with employees a lot more than how much of you kind of say it over an email or you say it over your IMs within the system.
My final question to you is, communication is a leadership trait, right? You communicate the way you communicate, whoever you communicate with. Your stakeholders, your vendors, your partners, your customers, your employees. What shift are you seeing in the way leaders communicate? The younger generation leaders, the startup leaders, you see them out there talking on social media, on different platforms, while a generation older, there is a bit of, a hesitance in coming out and speaking your mind. What kind of leadership communication changes that you're seeing?
One thing that I really notice is the spontaneity, and it's a continuous, consistent messaging that happens. So clearly it comes across not being tutored. It's not coming in that it's been prepared, but it's something that's consistent. So it brings in so much more authenticity. That's one. The second is also about showing a lot of manifestation of the communication in action. And I think maybe I'm going to just make an extreme point, but I think today's leaders are more smarter in terms of ability to kind of play up what they can do, and a lot more than what the earlier leadership was able to do. So the connect with the next generation seems to be a lot more among some of the younger leaders today. And the last one is essentially about an inside view of everything that's happening in the organization, able to connect with multiple departments so that you're not departmentalized. So it really breaks the silos and you're able to work together. I think those are things that I see as big differences and really congratulate and sometimes even aspire to be like the younger leaders today.
The world is finally turning flat, right? A lot more communication happening in a lateral manner. So great having you with us, Molly. It's been a very interesting conversation, and the insights that you shared about measurement, about what the companies can do to overcome the inhibition towards actually adapting the change. These are nuggets that our viewers would definitely find interesting. Thanks a lot for spending time with us. It was a pleasure hosting you on Story Talkies.
So much. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be in this session today. Thank you so much and all the very best.